Hello and welcome back to the Regimentals YouTube channel. Today I am going to feature in my video a very rare Freikorps, German Freikorps grouping. Now usually my videos I'll film them at work during the day. This one I'm filming at home in the evening, so I'm sitting here with a book on the sofa and I feel like I'm settling everybody down for a bedtime story. Hopefully I won't send you to sleep. But the purpose of this video is not to try and sell this grouping. I don't need to try and sell this grouping. The purpose of the video is to give some loose, light information to the novice viewers of my channel about the Freikorps, who they were, what they did, and their importance into the evolvement of the Third Reich Nazi Party. Freikorps items are very hard to come by. As I said, I don't need to try and sell this grouping, but it is important to state at the start of the video that this photograph album, the man in the photograph album, and the tunic, we do not believe them to be belonging to the same person. I think they're two separate pieces, but the purchaser of this group would probably end up buying both items, the album and the tunic. So we're listing them as one piece because Freikorps items are as a niche market but very desirable, very rare, so we're listing it together. So I'm going to go straight into talking about the album. The album runs from 1915 to 1945, so it's one man's history right from his service at the start of World War I through the period in between the wars and then his service in World War II. So it's a long album. And as we open the album, it starts off with the man's name, Gustav Strempel, 1915, and it says Marine. So he served in the German Navy during World War I. The photographs at the start of the album are relatively normal pictures: battleships, artillery, heavy artillery, some battle damage, open sea photographs, mines. It's general stuff. And as the album goes on, we reach a point where we have a really nicely illustrated page, Stern Company Lindau. There's photographs of various men in field grey uniform, and you can tell their uniforms now, they're not so much marine uniforms, but they're more the standard army field grey uniforms. He's listing all of his colleagues in that company, and then we reach the point of the album here where it says September 1918. So we've reached the end of the First World War, and the album continues. So you start to think, well, what's happening after the war? Because many collectors or historians who are getting into this industry, they just believe that the war ended in 1918 and then there was a big gap and the war restarted in 1939. Well, there's a lot of activity that happened in between. So the album shows Captain Ehrhardt. He was one of the leaders of the Freikorps Marine Brigade Ehrhardt, and the photographs start to change and you see lots of groups of soldiers, 1920 here. Important people on horses, photographs of parades, all soldiers marching, again here. Then we reach this interesting page here which says the revolution in Berlin. So at this point what I wanted to do was just give you a brief history about the Freikorps and where they were established, how they were formed. So as I was saying, I'm no expert on Freikorps. I know very little about it myself, but I know enough to pass on what I know to people who have no knowledge of the Freikorps. So Freikorps, or as it's called Freikorps, they started in the 18th century. I think it was about 1778 were the first Freikorps units during the 7-Year War or the Austrian War. And they were basically paramilitary groups. They were men who were not fighting for money, they were fighting for patriotism. Their country and their nationalism was more important to them than any form of wage or anything like that. During the Napoleonic Wars, there was a lot of activity with the Freikorps in the Napoleonic Wars. Mostly the Germans who were angry at the French for coming onto their land. So there was a lot of battles between German Freikorps units and the French Napoleonic Army. And then we move into a more modern era, World War One. There wasn't much activity during World War One. Everybody was fighting for Germany, and at that point, then we reached the end of World War One. And as you can imagine, 1919, 1920, there was so much instability in Germany. There was no law, no government. It was really a really vulnerable place for many people. There were many soldiers leaving the army in 1918, 1919, who were shell-shocked. They had what we would know as PTSD. They could not integrate into society, and they just felt completely lost, with no more camaraderie, no more military. So they joined these paramilitary groups known as the Freikorps. This was under the Weimar Republic and the Reichswehr. So these gangs or small groups were forming, and they were basically fighting against the Bolsheviks or the communists, and the Weimar Republic were using them to keep the Marxists at bay. And there was lots of activity and small fighting and battles happening in the streets of Germany and of Eastern Europe as well. They were used quite a lot in Poland, and these guys, that, you know, I say it was a small group of people, but they estimate there to be between 500,000 and 1.5 million members in the Freikorps between World War One and World War Two. It grew and grew and grew. You also had a lot of young men who were too young to fight. They couldn't fight during World War One. They would have been 12, 13 years old, and they were very angry and bitter about the loss of the war, so they wanted to prove themselves after the war, so they joined the Freikorps as well. And they became very, very ruthless. They were brutal with some of their actions, you know, what we would consider true war crimes now, killing without reason. And they just became very hardcore, hardened soldiers. And these men who were fighting in the streets, they were the original formation of the SA and the brown shirts. Lots of members of the Third Reich Nazi Party started in the Freikorps. You had Ernst Röhm, Martin Bormann, Heinrich Himmler. There was a flag bearer at one of the very big rallies for the Freikorps. You had Rudolf Hess, you had Reinhard Heydrich. They were all members of the Freikorps. So that short history of a bit of information gives people an idea of who the Freikorps were and what their importance was in that small gap between the two world wars. Now, as we know, when Adolf Hitler came into power, he used the Freikorps, he used them as a form of SA and SS to do his dirty work. And in the end, he became very worried about their power and how vulnerable he was to being attacked by the Freikorps himself. That is why you hear about the Night of the Long Knives, and lots of the SA members, the former Freikorps leaders, were all killed at the Night of the Long Knives. So that is where we are with who the Freikorps were. When I go back to the album, it starts to show pictures of the Freikorps men, and they look very much like the German stormtroopers of World War One. You can see they're the real battle-hardened soldiers, and the photos in the album are really interesting. There's armoured vehicles, like they're normal trucks or cars that have been converted into armoured vehicles by the Freikorps. It was very much what we would call a Heath Robinson army of things that were put together unofficially. What's really interesting about these photos is you see the men wearing helmets, the German M16, M17, M18 helmets, and on the front of their helmet they have a reversed swastika. So this was the symbol that they used before the swastika was adapted by the Third Reich. It's exactly the same as the swastika, but it's reversed, so it looks strange. When you first look at the pictures, it looks like, oh, someone's painted that on wrong. But that was their symbol. Now, of course, most people watching the video will know that the swastika was a good luck charm coming from Asia and the Far East, used by Indians and Chinese. So the swastika was not something that was invented by the Germans. It was already a good luck symbol from hundreds of years previous. So that's why they adopted it onto their helmets, and on these photos you see their armoured vehicles again with that reverse swastika on it. Really interesting. Just seeing all the hand grenades hanging from the vehicles, you can see, as I said, remnants of the stormtrooper units during World War I. The album is really interesting. It's got lots of the high ranking Freikorps guys, lots of marches, guys on horses, and lots of uniforms just like this one next to me. And in many of these photographs you see on the sleeve of the tunic the very rare Freikorps insignia, being the Viking ship sailing. It's really an elaborate piece of insignia, and you see the men in these photos adorning that insignia on their left sleeve. And then as the album goes on, all of a sudden you see a lovely photograph of a man wearing a Third Reich Kriegsmarine uniform. He's got the hat on, uniform. The photographs again at sea, but these ships are World War II ships. And so the reason for giving you that information is because, as I said at the start of the video, this man started in World War I and went through the Freikorps and all the way to fight for Germany in the Kriegsmarine in World War II. And then I notice at this point of the album there's a little newspaper clipping here, Gustav Stremper, and he has been awarded the German Cross in Gold. So the man in the album went on to win the German Cross in Gold. Some really lovely Kriegsmarine photographs here, all the men in their uniform, and the album finishes at a lager camp, 1945. So lager obviously is camp, prison camp, so we just assume that he was taken prisoner at the end of the war in 1945, and that be the end of the album. The best part about the album is those Freikorps photographs with the reverse swastika on it. But now I go on to talk about the tunic, because the tunic is really fantastic. It's in worn condition. You can see it's the field grey Friedensrock tunic. It's got officers' insignia for paymaster, which would be his rank of Oberleutnant, and it's got the apple green Austrian style collar, and this really elaborate, lovely Freikorps insignia. The officers' collar patches with the Earhart motif of the Stahlhelm helmet on it, loops for medals. It's got the pink piping on the front, the black piping on the shoulder boards and on the collar. It's got the Swedish 1910 cuffs. There's some moth holes on it, a little bit of damage. It's got the Prussian skirt on the back, and then, as I mentioned about the photographs in the album, it has this very, very, very rare insignia on the arm, the Viking ship sailing. And you can just see immediately it's a completely untouched tunic. Inside, pretty standard, it has a name label inside, and the tailor's label inside, you can see that the name written there is different to what's in the album. That's why we're pretty sure they're not related. Most of the time people want to know how much these items are worth. This sort of thing is really hard to gauge a price. As I said, the customer is quite rare, but the items are very rare. You don't see them around the world to compare prices. I think we're going to be asking about £4,500 for the two pieces, and I'm only going to be selling them together. Hopefully you've gained some information on the brief history I've given you about the Freikorps. I've enjoyed reading up on it to improve my knowledge. I really suggest you get onto the internet, onto Wikipedia or anywhere, and you can go further in depth into finding out more about who the Freikorps were and their importance in the formation of the Third Reich Nazi Party. So thank you for watching the video. This item will probably be going on to our next update. We have Christmas coming up soon. We have noticed over the years that our activity on the website does dramatically increase over Christmas. You know, don't be scared to tell your wife, your partner, that you would like some militaria for Christmas. We're always selling to women over the Christmas period, buying items for their partners. We do our best to try and make it a smooth, simple mission for them. So once again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.